Hello and welcome to The Print. I'm Snehesh Alex Philip. On day two in Bangladesh, the country continues to burn. The parliament has been dissolved by the president. The military is in power there and will form a caretaker government. And one will have to really wait and see who will head this particular government. And to carry forward this discussion, I have with me a formidable guest that is Ambassador Pankaj Saran. He is the convener of NatSrat think tank. He has been the former High Commissioner to Bangladesh from 2012 to 2015, when the historic land boundary agreement was ratified by the Indian Parliament. And he has also been the former Deputy NSA. So he's someone who knows this region very well. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Snesh. Happy to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Ambassador, my first question, where do you see Bangladesh moving from here?
Well, I think it's very early days yet. We are still in the thick of the evolving situation. So it's very difficult and I think inappropriate to make any long-term predictions. But I think for the immediate, what we are seeing is a very high degree of uncertainty. There is a lot of backlash against the Hasina regime. And so in the first few days and weeks, we will see a lot of unraveling of a lot of the things that she had done, whether it is in terms of legality, in terms of, as you said, the parliament, and many other actions that she has taken. So there will be a reversal of many of the things she had done domestically. There will also be a very heightened degree of uncertainty in terms of the law and order, in terms of the stability of the institutions, such as the bureaucracy, the police, judiciary, business, media, basically everyone concerned. So we will have to ride a rough storm in the weeks ahead. If you look at the history of Bangladesh, it shows us that this somehow is been the pattern of all previous transfers of power. In the 70s and 80s, it used to be far more violent
Yeah.
with political assassinations, etc. I'm not sure whether we will see that kind of violence, but we will also see retribution. We will see attacks on minorities, etc. So I would say overall, we are going to be faced with uncertainty, and we should be prepared to see everything. I mean, now in a sense, everything is up in the open, including, I would say, most importantly, the role of the students who are basically the 20-year-olds who have come onto the streets, who have tasted the power of the youth. And we have to see how much they can influence decisions of the gerontocracy, because that actually exists. In the medium term, I'm afraid Bangladesh is going to take an economic dip in terms of its ability to cater to the aspirations of the youth themselves, to handle its day-to-day economics, its financial situation. So yes, I would say our hands are going to be full in the next, I would say, weeks and months.
There is no doubt about the fact that, Ambassador Saran, as you mentioned, that our hands are going to be full. Uh, but do you think that the military will allow a civilian government to take place? Remember that Sheikh Hasina did not really trust the military, and so she selected. And this particular chief was also someone that chosen by her after careful selection, right? And that is probably the reason why she was able to make it out alive. The military facilitating her exit from Bangladesh. But do you see a civilian government taking place there with the opposition party playing a role, or do you think that the military will continue to control, at least for the foreseeable future?
I think the military will control for the foreseeable future, and I think that is good for Bangladesh in the given circumstances. The fact that she didn't trust the military, a lot of water has flown down that bridge. I mean, that was the situation maybe 20 years ago. But since then, she has established a lot of equities in the army. So I wouldn't regard that as a big issue anymore. It used to be, it is no longer. But in terms of who will call the shots, I think still it will be the military. I think everyone is happy to hand over the day-to-day governance and the restoration to the military, to the armed forces. And they will, of course, like to have a civilian advisory cover. Not that anyone actually is questioning the role they are playing at this moment of crisis, but I'm sure they would like to benefit from civilian inputs. So the stage at which they will recede into the background and allow a genuine civilian democratic government elected to take office, it is some time away. And that depends a lot on how mature the political parties are and how much they are in a position or willing
Yeah.
to cooperate in rebuilding the institutions of Bangladesh. The dissolution of the parliament is interesting, but we all know that it is not easy to have free and fair elections in Bangladesh. It's not going to happen tomorrow. There will be a lot of time that will be taken to ensure this kind of an election. Once that election is held, then of course we can hope for a democratic government. But till such time, I think we are going to look at an interim government with a selected set of advisors who will have the consensus of the main political parties. But I think in this, the Jamaat-e-Islami is going to play the dominant role.
Well, that is something that many fear, the fact that Jamaat-e-Islami would be playing the major role. Do you think, sir, Sheikh Hasina can ever make a comeback in the politics, or is the end of this Sheikh Hasina story as far as Bangladesh is concerned?
I doubt very much because of many, many reasons. In fact, I would also say that what we are seeing today is perhaps the end of the road for both the families, the Mujib family and the Zia family, and the two streams that they headed, the Awami League and the BNP. Both are actually at the crossroads where there is no succession. There is succession. You can argue, you can give me some names, but I will argue back that there may be names who you can throw up, but these are not really the kind of people who look to be credible successors of the inheritance. So actually, we are at a very, very interesting stage in the history of Bangladesh where the two families and the two streams of political thought, in a sense, captured the Bangladeshi imagination for 50 years. I don't see Hasina making any comeback, nor do I see Khaleda Zia or her son coming back.
So who will replace them?
Well, there are. It could be. I mean, again, the question is in what time frame. I mean, you're talking 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or you're talking, next month. So I think in the immediate, in any dispensation, the BNP will be a participant, but I suspect they are now much less relevant in terms of sheer street power and cadre strength as compared to the Jamaat and the Hifazat and the other Islamic parties. And this has always been known that the Jamaat has been biding its time. It is convinced that time is on its side, that it possibly offers the third solution, which has so far not been tested in its purity. Jamaat was a member of earlier governments, but they are projecting themselves as that new force. But I think if they continue to live in the past of the 1970s, they will again suffer the same fate because today the people of Bangladesh are those who, as I said, the people who matter, the demographic bulge is of the 20s and 30s. And this is that set who were born in the 1990s, the 2000s. Uh, they are removed far from the 71 events, 75 events. So I think we are actually in uncharted territory. I mean, really, we do not have an answer. That there could be a rise of some charismatic figure from somewhere who challenges established political parties. Because whether it's the Awami or whether it is the BNP, I think they have both sufficiently discredited themselves on the same counts of corruption, of dictatorship, of intolerance, and of absolutely poor governance. So there is nothing to choose between the two in terms of nepotism, in terms of all the ills that come across. So, uh, in fact, it could be an exciting moment for Bangladesh where there is actually a vacuum where you could have a new leadership. You could have a new version of the Jamaat, which is not the 71 Jamaat. But let us see. We are actually at a very, I would say, interesting moment. The Jamaat will obviously like to, because of their cadres, like to capture power and utilize this opportunity. But let us see. I mean, I don't think it's going to be a one-shot solution. There will be permutations, combinations. We could see political upheavals in the next 1, 2, 3 years till there is kind of a new
Still, yeah.
equilibrium that is set. So I don't think the situation is as simple as being binary in nature. If it's not this, then it is that. And I think it's all for the good because Bangladesh has to come of age. They have a very young population.
So, as we talk about Bangladesh, there is no denying for the fact that this is a serious setback to India. And except for Sri Lanka, now we have now a neighborhood which is ruled by those who are not favorable towards India. At their first inclination. Unlike we had a so Sheikh Hasina was someone who was seen as close to India. So, do you think India failed to anticipate it first and also to prevent it?
There are many ways to answer your question. If I were to ask and suggest that we should ensure that every neighbor of ours has a government to our liking, then people like you would criticize the Indians for interfering in the internal affairs of our neighbors. Now, if I leave it to the devices of our neighbors to decide who to elect, whether it is pro or anti Indian, then I am accused of failing to predict and of having a difficult neighborhood. So, every major country which has small neighbors faces this dilemma. And the fact of the matter is that, yes, I would ideally like to be in that situation. But when we had a good constellation around us, you never interviewed me because you took it all for granted that this is the way life is and this is the way it should be and what's new. But when you have trouble, that's when everyone wakes up. But remember, the government in India functions on 24/7 basis. I mean, it is their job to keep a hawk's eye on what's happening in the neighborhood, and they therefore prepare. They wish for the best, but they prepare for the worst. And these are cycles of political life where you have a good constellation at one point in time and in some other point you do not. A lot of it is not of your choosing. A lot of the times but the only thing which you can do is to ensure that you protect your own national security, because that is the ultimate goal of any
Absolutely.
government that rules the country. And secondly, to ensure that you promote in a secular fashion, in a long term fashion, the integration of the neighborhood with the Indian economy and the Indian polity and the Indian society. And I think there, if you look at it from a secular point of view, we have done extremely well. So these hiccups and these episodic events of changes of government should not blind us to the broader trend line, which I think we have done fairly well. And I see it only getting better and better in the future. So I think we should avoid breastfeeding and unnecessarily dramatizing situations. We have to take them in our stride, um, like all major powers do. I mean, every major power that I can think of has faced huge strategic setbacks and defeats, but they have recovered, regrouped, and gone forward.
Absolutely. But so, India did have deep friendship with the government there. Now she's no longer there. But there is large scale discontent against India which has come out in these protests and all. Why is that so? Why have the so-called people who manage this whole protest, why are they so against India?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and there are legitimate reasons. I mean, some of these reasons are simply a function of the asymmetrical geography that faces both Bangladesh and India. The Bangladeshis simply do not like the fact that they are hemmed in their mindset by India. So they have this deep rooted suspicion about a big power trying to be dominant and trying to overwhelm their culture or their identity. So this problem is structural. There's nothing you can do unless you change the geography of either Bangladesh or India. So that is something we have to live with, we have to understand, and there's practically, as I said, short of changing borders, there's nothing you can do about. Second is the man-made factors, pursuit of wrong policies. Now we have dealt, people claim or blame India for being supporting Hasina and for being friendly to Hasina. Well, yes and no. I mean, we will work with any leader, any political party which believes in a cooperative relationship with India. And we have given our best shot, whether it was with the regime of Ziaur Rahman, whether with Hussein Muhammad Ershad, whether with Khaleda Zia. We've dealt with all of them. The success of the bilateral relationship is a two-way traffic. Insofar as the current situation is concerned, I think yes, there is frustration against Hasina, and in the common perception, she is associated with India, which is wrong. I mean, we did not elect her to power in 2008 or in 2013. It was the people, and it was their machinery, their institutions, which led to that consequence. So, but if she wants to have good relations with India, if she wants to do bold things with India, why should India hesitate to go forward with her? So, we've done so many. I mean, you can list a whole host of things that we have done with Bangladesh. So, a lot of it is in the mind, not based on fact. But as I said, some of it is inevitable, and this is going to be a long term challenge for us.
A long-term challenge. Some would say that that we put all our eggs in one basket. That is the Awami League. But I remember when Prime Minister Narendra Modi was there in Bangladesh in 2015. You were the High Commissioner then. He had also met with Khalida Zia. She had refused to meet with Pranab Mukherjee when he was there, but she met with Narendra Modi. Uh, what transpired then, and were able to maintain a channel of communication with the BMP?
Oh, yes. I mean, there was no doubt. I mean, before the Prime Minister's visit in 2015, Begum Khaleda Zia paid a highly celebrated visit to India as the leader of the BNP, in which she met everyone. I mean, including the
Yeah.
Prime Minister, everyone, the whole entire leadership. So our channels with the BNP were open and have remained open right through. The problem arose when, under her prime ministership, the relationship went to its worst in living memory, that period of 2001 to 2006. But the channels of communication with the BNP were always open. I myself have met her many times as High Commissioner. BNP officials, party members have been frequently visiting India. They have been visiting the High Commission. The channels have always been open. The point is that the intolerance, either on behalf of Khaleda Zia or on behalf of Sheikh Hasina, for any Indian official to meet the other leader is the same. When Begum Khaleda Zia was Prime Minister, she took great umbrage at the fact that we were having contacts with the Awami League and Sheikh Hasina. And likewise, when Sheikh Hasina was in office, she took great umbrage that we had any contacts with Begum Khaleda Zia. So this is again symptomatic of the nature of the Bangladeshi polity, that it is winner takes all. That's the nature of the system there.
In your sense, what should be India's strategy now going forward?
I think India's strategy has to be to allow the internal tumult and churning in Bangladesh to take place, to give them time and space to allow the forces, the political formations, and everyone else to come to some kind of a new equilibrium. And once that has happened, to move forward again from where we left off with Sheikh Hasina, because the fact of the matter is that in her 15 years, we have made unprecedented progress in the bilateral relationship. And I have to add that a lot of this has been to the benefit of Bangladesh. But in that meanwhile, what we have to do is to also prevail upon the establishment in Bangladesh that we would like them to bring stability back into Bangladesh, because of the fact that there is a spillover effect, a cross-border effect on India. I mean, it's a big border, it's a porous border. It may be fenced, but it's highly vulnerable. So we do not want a cross-border spillover of the internal instability to affect our own security. So I think what we should do is to continue and persevere. We also have to have a frank dialogue with whoever comes into power in Bangladesh, basically to repeat what we have been saying all along, that we actually would like to live in peace with Bangladesh. We have no designs on Bangladeshi territory or in terms of questioning their identity, etc. But they know the problems we have. I mean, we have problems of terrorism. Of course, we also have problems of radicalization because we have a large Muslim population ourselves. So this is a free and frank conversation we have. So and then of course from the other side, economic, trade, and political, obviously we want to continue that process because the fact is that in this 15-year period, the rapid growth of Bangladesh's GDP, etc., has been coterminous with its opening to India.
Exactly.
So there is enough circumstantial and factual evidence that a good open relationship with India has been good for Bangladesh. And tomorrow, of course, we know that all these events have and will create serious economic and other problems for Bangladesh. I'm sure that our government, as part of its neighborhood first policy, will be available to assist and to help Bangladesh, get back to its growth momentum and everything else. But the first order of business has to be to restore stability, to
Normalcy.
build its own institutions, normalcy, and also then tell us, whoever is power, we don't know, but whoever comes, to make an expression of interest about what kind of a relationship they want with India.
Absolutely. So before I let you go, my last question to you: do you think that these protests were organic? It started off by a decision by the court. It was not something which was against the prime minister there or against the Awami League, but a decision by the court. Suddenly, it became about making Sheikh Hasina go. Do you think that these protests were organic, or do you think there was a third country involved in this, or maybe more countries?
You see, obviously the issue was organic. I mean, the fact is that there have been student protests in the past. 2013 in Shahbag, there was this big, massive student protest on a traffic violations, which the students just took over. So Bangladesh has a history of street agitation. So there was an organic element in how it all began. But in these kind of situations where democratic freedoms are limited, even the slightest match can spark a fire. So when the organic agitation spread, and there is enough political opposition to Hasina, the other parties and the opponents jumped in because they thought this, and they suddenly realized that this was the moment they were waiting for. And if you've been to Dhaka, you know how densely populated it is and how easy it is to mobilize lakhs of people. It doesn't take time, maybe a few hours, if not less. So they brought the city to a halt. So number one, a political opportunism by the opponents. Number two, the primary movers in this were the student wing of the Jamaat-e-Islami, which is the Islami Chhatra Shibir, and of course the BNP cadres, the Chhatra Dal. And the students at some stage were relegated. So these organized cadres then went about indulging and using the students as a mask to pursue their own agenda. I mean, I don't understand which student would like to set fire to the Indian Culture Center. A lot of this is politically driven. So, to answer your question, yes, it was organic, but it captured the imagination. Opponents used it to kind of press home their agenda and their advantage. And insofar as the third countries are concerned, well, it is easy to ask and answer, which are the countries who would be interested in seeing a reversal of a good India-Bangladesh relationship. I mean, to my mind, obviously, Pakistan is the number one country that comes to mind. China is not far behind. But I would also say that the Western countries obviously did not enjoy a good relationship with Sheikh Hasina,
Yeah.
and they made no secret of it. And nor did Sheikh Hasina make no secret of the fact that she had very, very tense and difficult ties with the United States and Europe and the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
So I think there was a lot of all this going on, intermingling, convergence. But I would only say that if it is argued that democracy is the panacea and the solution to all of the Bangladesh's problems, I would agree if you were to say the same thing for the military dictatorships in the Arab world and the monarchies, because we all know they have survived not for 15 years, but for 20, 30, 40 years with the
Yeah.
full backing of the Western countries. So,
Exactly.
democracy, we cannot have double standards, nor can we be blind to the fact that if you look at the 50 years of Bangladesh and you look at all the democratically elected governments, we all know how they have behaved, whether it was a previous incarnation of Hasina, whether it was the 2 terms of Khaleda Zia. I mean, to put it in very simple terms, the kind of guiding philosophy is winner takes all, and that's the meaning and interpretation of a democratic government in Bangladesh. Whether this will change for the better, whether you will actually have pluralism and tolerance and accommodation, we hope that happens as Bangladesh matures as a nation. But the record so far suggests completely the opposite.
Well, thank you so much, Ambassador Saran, for speaking to us here at the print.
Thank you.
Thank you for your insights. Now, one will have to really wait and watch how things turn out to be in Bangladesh. But as you rightly mentioned, the first priority is for Bangladesh to settle down, for a new equilibrium to be established, and then only can things move forward. But thank you once again, Ambassador Saran, for joining here at the print. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. My pleasure. Goodbye.